Being one of the largest brands bordering the edge of the core skate community, Primitive has been steadily cranking out a lineup of fantastic amateur skaters since its conception over 10 years ago, bringing names like Carlos Ribeiro and Frankie Villani to the forefront of the skate audience and being a driving force in skate culture, whether we like it or not. With the release of Daydream, the shrouds are pulled back on what I would assume to be the next 3 pro prospects of Primitive in these coming years, featuring the likes of Dylan Jeb, Felipe Mota, and Kiyonosuke Yamashita. This jam-packed edit stretches nearly 30 minutes of footage with the bonus team montage smacked in between. Things kick off with Felipe Mota as our opener, and he delivers strong with one of the longest front nose slides ever on the same ledge that T-Pud backtailed. Followed by a quick Nike cameo ad before we go full blast on skating, his part came out to be the shortest of the 3 by about a minute and a half. And when looking over the trick list, it's fair to say that it's what you'd expect out of a 17-year-old hungry amateur skater. Amongst the hefty amount of B-roll this part contains, Felipe managed to get a sturdy 23 tricks in these 5 minutes of footage, and his spot selection focuses heavily on handrails and ledges, with the former being his go-to favorite. Amongst those 23 tricks, only 4 were not regular stance, with 2 being fakie and 2 being switch respectively, with no love for nollies however. One thing to say about Felipe is that he loves his no-slide crooks, sprinkling about 3 variations across the footy dump, and he's definitely your quintessential handrail hammer kind of skater, as can be seen by his lack of any manual tricks, avoidance of drops and stair gaps, and very little line counts. Being a borderline contest skater, it makes sense in my eyes, as I'm sure the final trick section is usually what he practices and all he's ever focused on when it comes to throwdown in practice. His ender was textbook perfection with a solid execution and rollerway, but sadly SLS would probably still give him an 8.9. After a quick catch up with the team and a sweet little montage they put together, we have the one, the only, Kiyonosuke Yamashita. Hands down, this dude put on an entire show, and I'll beg to differ, he had the best part in the entire full-length feature. If you were to take Frankie Villani's DNA, replicate it in an indoor skate warehouse in Japan, you'd be left with this incredible specimen of pure skate creativity and talent. I'm not just hyping the man up either. In his 6 minutes and 32 seconds of footage, he squeezed in literally 60 clips, nearly triple that of the previous part with Felipe. Not only did he have the longest part amongst the 3, he also had the most lines as well, featuring literally 12 separate lines that make up more than half of his 60 tricks. This dude is no joke when it comes to both consistency and creativity. Taking it a bit further than Felipe, Kiyono pulled up with 8 switch tricks and 8 fakie tricks, and somehow the first nollie trick we've seen from these amps. His switch front 360 in the bank was honestly insane and my favorite trick from this part, especially from the second angle in the credits. Based on his mass trick assault, his favorite obstacle is definitely those ledges and mani pads, as he pulls out some insane technical combos and lines with them in his path. Although he isn't afraid to send it down some huge gaps or hit a handrail or 2 as well. When you're doing a trick almost every 6 seconds in your video part for over 6 minutes straight, you gotta love the serious level of passion and effort it took to put that together, and if he wasn't in the eyes of the skatecore community before, he definitely is now. After about 16 minutes of some pretty solid amp footage from both Felipe and Kiyono, we finally have the man, the myth, the legitimately only person I have to Google what stance they are every time I watch their footage, Dylan Just Do It Jeb, in his debut part for Nike, his brand new amp part for Primitive's Daydream. But seriously though, having seen his previous part on his personal YouTube account, it's clear to see that the older footage was a dump of leftovers from this more focused part. Notably only rocking one shoe brand finally, Dylan throws together a hefty 6 minutes and 16 seconds of must-keep footage from the dump back in October. Although not as trick-heavy as Kiyono's part, Dylan was able to get a total of 40 clips off in this barrage of footy. One thing I'll say that's impressive is just how little regular stance tricks we see take place, with only 15 out of 40 clips starting from regular. Across this part we can see an astounding 27.5% of his footage being either switch or fakie, with the notable ender being a first MBD of any trick in fakie stance going down Wallenberg. Although sadly, I feel like amps these days just hate nollies, as in total we've only seen 4 clips go down in this stance across all 3 parts. I gotta give props to Dylan though for putting together some rather aesthetically pleasing manual combos, despite loving to throw himself down gaps just as much. He was able to string across 6 lines with 15 out of 40 tricks, with the majority of them bundled together in the middle of his part before things escalate to the fakie flip from hell. Really glad to see this trick wasn't a similar situation to Scheckler's backside flip on El Toro, or one of those situations where the film angle was on a phone only. If anyone was going to do it, it was bound to be one of these no-stance freaks like Dylan, and it's crazy to believe he even went straight for the flip and couldn't even be bothered to ollie it. So I guess that's still up for grabs if anyone wants it. Overall, if there's anything to take away from this 30 minutes of high-budget primitive production, it's that amateurs are just absolutely insane these days in general. Even though statistically Felipe had the least footage, lines, stance variety, and spot diversity, he was still able to put together some very impressive footage for only being 17. Some of these hammers we've seen either attempted or landed in competitions, and it's cool to see him take them out of the park and into the street. Although Dylan's part was very impressive, and his stance versatility is frankly insane, at this point considering some of these clips, I did feel his part suffered a bit from that footage jump back in October, being that he was really only focused on keeping footage that showcased a nice little swoosh on his feet. Again, not that his part was bad, but objectively speaking, he had tons of footage that I feel was divided up for the focus of appealing to a possible shoe contract that we may see in the near future. When it comes to who pulled through the most for this video, we cannot deny the sheer amount of tricks, footage, combos, and lines from Yamashita and what he was able to put together. More than half of his tricks were thrown down in lines compared to Dylan and Felipe, and his part had little to no b-roll, and if there was, it was just so you could put a name to the face, cause this man don't play. That ollie bank kickflip was every little skater driving by a ditch on the way home from school's dream trick, and it was just so perfectly executed. When it comes to these 3 dams, the level is set, and a standard has been made. As far as primitive's concerned, if you ain't as good as these 3 young bucks, don't even bother calling yourself an am. Big shouts out to Alan Hannon, Eric Kawakura, Alex Kissinger, and Blaine Viardi for being the skeleton behind this monster of a film and providing editing, filming, and graphics for this quality produced video. Really enjoyed it, and I hope you all loved it as much as I did. This has been my extreme over analysis, and thanks for watching.